What's up, you spiritual souls, you mystical wanderers? Welcome to the podcast. My guest today is Em McGowan. She's a teacher, a shaman, a healer, a therapist, and the founder of peaceofi.com and consciouslycreatechange.com. She's here with us to share her profound wisdom with us all. So without further ado, let's take a deep dive into all things metaphysical. This is me and Em McGowan. Namaste, Em, first of all, and welcome to the podcast. So, I was wondering, it's my pleasure. I was wondering, you have an extraordinary and fascinating story. So I was wondering, shall we start from your origin story? From being a bodyguard to a shaman, to a therapist, and whatnot. So,
well, it started from when I was younger. I used to see people who had passed. I was very young, like in primary school, and I'd always seen people. I didn't know it wasn't normal. And then as I wanted to explore things, just asking questions, my mum took me to a medium to see what's going on with my child. And the medium told my mum, she said she's highly gifted, highly psychic. She should join the circle. But my mum said, I don't like the idea of that. People already think she's strange enough. So I wasn't able to talk about it anymore. And then as I got to nearer my teenage years and I started looking into things, I ended up getting some friends who helped me see life from a different perspective. And I started looking at Wicca and Native American medicine, spells and stuff. So that's when I was 15. I'm 40 now. So I'd gone on to doing that and looking at things and keeping asking questions and trying different religions. I tried out being Muslim for a while. That didn't, it seemed like it was just Christianity in a different language. And then I explored more Christianity. I just looked at everything really as I was getting older, but rather than have a job doing something where I used to do readings and stuff when I was 16, even though I should have waited till I was 18, I was doing card readings and giving people messages and stuff. But I didn't know what I was doing back then. Which is why I spoke to spirit as I did and got myself into all sorts of pickles. Now I know better, and I am not a medium. I do not practice mediumship, and I do not agree with mediumship. But it's all part of the story of how I got to now. And then I looked at this, I was exploring my side of spirituality, looking for all the answers that I had inside me, like, why is life like this? Why me? Why don't I fit in? And things, and all sorts of different things happened to me in my lifetime. And then I had a stroke. So I was doing a normal job, well, bodyguard, if you can call that normal, but it was 9 till 5. I worked looking after people. And then I went on to doing like 14-hour shifts a day or 24-hour shifts. And I progressed up the ladder doing, security as a security operative, looking after people, places and things. And then I was doing 108 hours a week in the end. And it was really a lot. And I had a stroke. And I woke up one morning, I couldn't move. And that was the stroke that brought me grace. That was what pushed me to a whole new level of self-discovery. Because before that, I was looking at things, asking questions, and I'd even had a mini awakening, not knowing what that was one day at work, and all of a sudden everything, all the colours, everything, you know, I was sat meditating, and all of a sudden everything just appeared so much better than it ever was before. The world just changed from that day onwards. And I'd been reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle at the time. And I've been looking at the law of attraction and stuff. And then when I had my stroke, it pushed me further deep inside than I'd ever been before. So I was able to, well, not at first. At first, I just wanted to die. I really was stuck in that woe is me mindset, where I just felt like everything happened to me. It was just karma. This was just something that happened to me because I was bad in a different life or something like that, you know. I just didn't know the truth. And the stroke pushed me so far inside, I started really looking differently at everything. And it was only because of the words of the Invictus poem from a carer that taught me to look at the world differently, which is, I am the captain of my ship, the master of my soul. And for me, those words just really pushed me forward and started me looking at Ram Dass. They introduced me to, I was watching Netflix, of all places, of all non-spiritual places, I guess. I was checking out Netflix, and I came across Ram Dass's documentary about how he had a stroke and how he loved and served, and that just like made me change my mindset. I thought, hold on a minute, I've got the power here to change my life. I can consciously create the life that I want if I just put the effort in. And I don't have to live like this. I don't have to believe what the doctors tell me. You know, I'm not going to be blind for the rest of my life, because I ended up photophobic after the stroke, so I couldn't see. I got taught to walk with a cane and stuff. And for me, exploring life through Ram Dass and the spirituality there with Maharaji and yoga, even though I didn't know it was yoga at the time. Eventually I found out it was yoga. I thought yoga was where you bend yourself into a pretzel, and I that put me off, you know. But when I realized yoga is exploring the self, yoga actually means to unite. It's a union of mind, body, spirit. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And now I kind of get where it all fits in. So that, and looking at Insight, there's an amazing film called Insight, and it's all about where you learn to look at the world instead of looking from the outside in. So instead of judging a person from what their stereotype is, you just look for the soul, you look for the heart, you look for what's going on behind the veil of what you see.
The mask.
And then when that goes on, you see the world in it changed my perception of how to look at the carers, because I had carers that looked after me, and I started not being so nasty and not being so defensive, because I saw they too were looking at me like a soul, but I was looking at me like a disabled person, like so it helped me change my perception of me, helped me change my perception of them, and helped me see the whole of everything with a whole different form of loving awareness. I think it helped that it came alongside loving awareness with Ram Dass, and then it kind of all made so much sense. It took my understanding of Eckhart Tolle to a whole new level, which I'd not been there before. So I'm sorry if you can hear our cockerels trying to join in. I live off grid now.
Totally
They're all singing outside the window. But
as you said, just go with the flow, right?
Yeah, I just needed to explain myself in case people thought, what on earth is that? They're joining in.
Yeah.
They're just being. They're practicing isness, cockerel style. Yeah, it's like I'd gone from being and looking at the world through the different perspectives and just being stuck, but changing my perception to look at the world with love and awareness and practice loving kindness on my own. So then I found Reiki, Reiki energy healing through a somatics class that I attended. And I started really looking at how to heal myself even deeper, because Reiki doesn't teach you how to heal other people. Reiki teaches you how to put yourself first. And I'd never done that. I'd always wanted to serve everyone else. So in my whole life, it's like, yeah, I'll help you. I'll help you. I'll help you.
Yeah.
Always, yeah, no problem. No problem. I can always make time for something else and run myself ragged looking after everyone else. And I forgot about me.
Yeah.
And that's why I ended up having the stroke, because everything else was more important than taking a pause. So I didn't know my Reiki master was also a shaman. And I was exploring different things. And I'd already explored the Native American medicine way back when I was 15. And what Ram Dass helped me put all the different forms of spirituality into my, I suppose, to see the truth behind all of them. So I'd seen years ago the similarity between Muslims and Christians, and all of a sudden now I see the similarity between Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, Jews, shamans. Everything's the same when you look at it on that level.
Yeah, because
and I started studying.
Because all of these religious systems, I think they were founded by mystics, right? And mystics in every tradition, they relate to each other, they understand each other, they don't argue with each other. Only religions like argue. And there is a reason, because mystics are coming from experience. They haven't read something in a book. They have experienced, and then they translated that experience into words. Right. But I think the tragedy with humanity is, like, if you will, like, there is a saying, right? If you will point a finger to the moon and you will try to show them the moon, they'll only focus on the finger. Right.
Yeah.
So that's
amazing. I've never heard that. That's beautiful. And it's true. You say just like that in a religion, you look at this and they're just watching the vicar and they just want to, it's ego. We all come from a society that puts value on things like property and money, and it doesn't put value on manners and community values and working together and sharing. We get brought up to, that's yours, or don't share that, or it's okay, but you shouldn't really share all your stuff, you shouldn't really give it up, that's yours, and my house is better than their house, or their garden, look at their garden, we need to have a garden like that. In the UK, they say it's called keeping up with the Joneses, because you always try and do one better than your neighbour. It's crazy, because people in society today think like that. And what my life has taught me through all the things that I've lost, I was homeless at 15. I was homeless again when I just had my baby my daughter Shaan. I was homeless, and she was only 18 months old. After that, I ended up homeless again when I left my husband in 2013. In 2017, after the stroke, I become homeless again, and I kept thinking, well, why am I homeless? Why does this keep happening to me? Yeah. Why do I keep losing everything? And then I realized that I was only losing the material stuff. I never lost any memories. I never lost any of the good stuff. The memories was all there. Yeah, I lost so many things, but you can't take it with you. There's things are not as important as love and as just being with one another and sharing time with one another. So for me, it taught me to let go. You know, the lesson was about letting go, and maybe if I'd have learned it sooner, but I wouldn't have learned the lessons that I did, to walk the path of fire that I have walked, to experience all the things that I did, to grieve so many times for all the things, the people and the property and the motorbikes and the cars and the life that I lived. And I wouldn't have experienced the pain that I experienced to enable to be with myself as I am now. And the last time now, before I came away to Portugal and I got right into everything and thinking, right, this is, as I'm living my life, I want to love and I want to serve people and I want to feed people, just like Maharaji says. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to give everything away this time. So I did. So I had a whole house full of furniture and everything. And I just gave it away. I gave it away to hostels. I gave away all the plants out of my garden. I gave away all my plates and cutlery. And I kept my Be Here Now book by Ram Dass and my Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle and my How Can I Help You by Ram Dass books. And everything else, apart from my art set, got given away to charities or homeless people or whatever, you know, and that's how I did it.
That's beautiful.
And then I could just be. I was really happy with that, you know.
And that's why I wanted to start with your journey, because your journey is so remarkable and fascinating. So it's full of insights and it's full of contemplation, kind of contemplation which every human should do. Like I remember yesterday you asked me a question which was very profound. The last time we talked, not yesterday, day before yesterday, right? So you said, who were you before the world told you who you are? Right? You said something, who you should be. So I think like this is such a profound question, and every human being should contemplate on that. And after we entered the call, I thought about it. Since childhood, like since the day we are born, right? Everybody, people near us, our loved ones, they start to put on us one label and then another label, then another label. And each of those label, including my name, it comes with a limitation and it comes with a division, it comes with a conflict, right? And another thing I came up to on my contemplation, that the whole structure of society and our parents and everybody, including our school teachers and all that, they just teach us like what to think. Nobody teaches us how to think. And whenever, like you said, your journey started basically with curiosity, right? You were curious about all sorts of things about life, right? So same with me. My journey also started, but I think with most people, what happens is, as kids we constantly ask questions, right? Like, why is this, how is this, why is this so? But we are shunned for asking questions. Like everybody just, some people even beat children for asking so many questions, right?
Yeah.
But so then I came up to that, all right, if these things has happened, then my brain is kind of conditioned by society, right? And until my brain is conditioned, I will never see the world for what it is. I will always like see the world for from my conditioned mind, right?
Yeah.
Like if you will tell a
That's how
kid,
we come up with a judgment.
yeah, if you will tell a kid like a definition of a tree and labels of a tree, right? Scientific names and all that, then he'll never see a tree for the rest of his life, right? He'll
No.
just see the projection of his thoughts, right? So I think that was a very profound question, and it's very important for us to have this ability to question everything, right?
Yeah.
So until we'll question, until we'll revolt against our conditioning, then without it there will be no freedom, and without freedom there can't be love, right? There can't be intelligence, there can't be love without freedom. So people even say that I am fighting for peace, right? You might have heard that, right? What kind of silly idea it is. Why are you
You
gonna
can't.
fight for
It
peace?
is crazy. Mother Teresa, she didn't fight for peace, and
Yeah,
she used to say, if you have an what is it? If you have an anti-war rally, I'm not going. But if you have a pro-peace, then I will be there, because it isn't about fighting. It isn't about aggression or violence. It's about truth and love. And you look at the law, the universal law of psychic cause and effect. When you take into account that law, that what we think, what we feel and what we focus on happens. If we put all our thoughts and all our felt thoughts, into something, so we're focusing on being anti something, we're just
yeah,
giving it energy and we're creating more, because the universe doesn't say, well, they don't want it, they think that maybe we want it. So we have to be very, very, very direct and clear and specific when we're thinking what we're thinking, because that way we're telling the universe, this is what we want. We want to
yeah,
achieve love. So it's not about saying, I don't want this government, right? Because by saying, I don't want this government, whatever that government is,
yeah,
we're putting our thoughts and feelings into it. They're going to end up back. It's about saying, I just want what's for the highest good of all.
yeah,
Yeah. And maybe trying to take our own perceptions out of that. So it's whatever is there for the highest good of the planet, whatever's for the highest good of the planet and the people on the planet, no matter what their class is. There shouldn't even be class. There is one race, the human race. So
yeah,
it shouldn't matter whether we're rich, whether we're poor. Shouldn't matter how much money like there is, or what jobs we have, or anything. It shouldn't matter whether we're disabled or our sexuality. What should matter is that we are a part of a community that we can play a positive part in. And back with the Native Americans
yeah,
and many other indigenous tribes, they never shunned the disabled people. They were just another part of the community with their gifts, because everyone has gifts. It's just our ego that makes us think we're better than them because we're a certain sexuality or a certain race or
yeah,
whatever. All of it is just separateness and division. and we create that ourselves because we're not looking for truth. We're not seeing truth. We're just trying to build a world based on our own perception of it. And our perception isn't always right. It doesn't matter how much I concentrate on being love and trying to do the highest good. I still screw up. I still make mistakes. I still have to work on myself every day. I can wake up in the morning and say, God, how can I serve you today? How can I work for the highest good of people? How can I love people and feed people? Who's going to show up? What can I do? And for me, it's about being, and sometimes it's just being present, and then everything else just shows up anyway, because I'm not doing something to get something back. I'm doing something because that's just what I want to do. I want to love people, to give them love if they've never felt it before, to support them on their journey, whatever their beliefs are. I want to help them to feel heard and feel valued and to walk their own path. I want to empower people to do what they need to do for themselves, for their highest good. Their highest good and my highest good could be two different things. My perception and what I think life is and how I look at life, it's absolutely irrelevant when it comes to serving someone else, because their perceptions are different. We're all unique human beings. So the best way to serve is to let go of the agenda. Like a homeless person's homeless doesn't mean that they want a home. It doesn't mean that they want you to walk up and give them a coffee. They might not drink coffee. Just because you drink coffee doesn't mean they drink coffee, But you're thinking that, well, if that was me, I'd want a bacon butty and a coffee. And that's so judgmental, because we've got it in our head. If that was me, this is what I would like. It's better to say hello, just meet someone eye to eye and just go, hi, how are you doing? How can I serve you right now? How can I help right now? Like, if you don't feel comfortable giving money or something, it's like, did you want a brew? Can I get you a cup of tea? Or can I get you anything? Are you hungry? Or do you just want a chat? Can I sit with you a while? I've been on the street, like just walking down the street and seeing people, and I said, can I just sit with you a while? Are you cool with that? And they look at me like I'm really weird, and I just sit with them. And sometimes we say nothing, and sometimes we do speak, and sometimes they share the story, and it's all about sharing the love and just being present with another person. So for me, especially with homelessness and stuff and things like trauma, we have this disconnect. We disconnect from society. We feel ashamed. We feel guilty. We feel bad about where we're at and how we are. And we don't want people to notice us. We keep our heads down. Our whole body language, everything is so disconnected from reality. So for these people that are so disconnected and so scared, when you actually go and sit with them, saying nothing, not expecting anything, it helps them feel human again. And that's what we need in this world. We need to look at another person. When we meet someone with a wheelchair, don't talk to the person pushing the chair. Talk to the person, say hi. We're all just the meta. The statement that is known in meta is just like me. So you are just like me. They are just like me. We are all just like one another. And this is even the people that we perceive as evil, monstrous, terrorists and pedophiles and people like that. Do you know what? They are just like us. They hurt the same. They suffer just the same. And hurt people. If people were all right, no one would get hurt. And the reason why they're hurting others is because they've had a really awful experience themselves and they just didn't know how to cope with it. They disconnected. They've suffered from trauma too. They suffer with things like addictions, and that's because they disconnect. And it's only when people start to see them as they really are, like Gabor Mate, when he sits with people who've got really bad addictions, he goes, okay, you know, do you want to talk, and compassionate questioning and stuff and sharing the love. That is when we start to really break through that veil, that mask. Because at first we're looking from the outside in, but with that inside, with being able to sit with a person where they're at in that moment, no matter how much suffering they're going through, whether they're dying, whether it's the last days, the last weeks, or the last moments, or whether they're suffering for some other thing, you know, maybe in a hospital, or suffering with pain of being of suffering from rape or assault of some kind, or being robbed, or anything like that. All of it results in trauma that being held in their system, where they disconnect. And once they disconnect from life, as most people know it, there's that separateness, that division, and they're unable to function like we usually function. Do you know what I mean? We can't function like proper human beings. And human beings, the clue's in the name, it's a human being. Not a human doing, it's a human being. One race, human race, and we're human beings, which should be just being present with one another. So
there is
when we're present, when we're being a human being, that's when we can lose the separateness and the division.
And everything starts within, right? Whenever I see people start with these kinds of things, these kinds of thoughts, they start outwardly. They start to read books and they start to watch videos and all those things. But I think these things starts inwardly first. Then outwardly you want to explore, that's an option, that's not necessary, right? But
I think for some people like myself, I'd been exploring and it wasn't enough. And it was only when I really hit rock bottom and got to the darkest place in my life where the pain pushed me enough to move forward, to be able to get to a stage where I actually realized I was capable. Because while I was in that victim mindset, I just thought that everything happened to me. So I wasn't willing to. I thought that I had no control of the situation. So when people are suffering from trauma, and people are suffering from a disconnect in their lives, it's because they think that the world's happening to them and they have no control on the outcome. When the truth is, we can consciously create our own future no matter what's happening. And we have got the power within us. It doesn't take any money. It doesn't take any spirituality. It doesn't take any religion. It doesn't take anything other than the conscious thought, the choice that we can make to say, do you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. You know?
Exactly.
I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just going to be. And
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Hello. Hi. I'm sorry about that.
I have to work so hard on the editing.
Sorry.
It's all right. No worries. Maybe we can do another podcast also someday. We are gonna continue this one, but maybe when your internet is going good, then we can do another sequel of that, right? So
Yeah, I think that the thing is, it just will never happen the same way again, will it? When you talk, things always
exactly.
new.
Yeah,
You know,
the last time we had conversation, there's nothing from that conversation this time, right?
yeah,
Actually, I didn't came onto this conversation with a lot of things in my mind, because as you said, like there is also a way of being carefree with life, not careless but carefree.
yeah,
So yeah, so podcast with you will always be carefree. So
yeah. Usually,
so yeah, so we were talking about trauma, right? I'm
yeah.
actually reading a book. I've just started it. The name of the book is Trauma of Everyday Life, and it's a book by Mark Epstein.
Yeah.
And I thought it's a book about psychology. It is actually about psychology, but it's about Buddhist psychology. He speaks from a Buddhist perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, how Buddha saw trauma was, he saw it as a fact of life. He didn't saw something to be ashamed of. He didn't saw something to be fearful of. He saw it as a uh, fact of life. And what his viewpoint was, and Buddha was the first psychologist, right?
Yeah.
His viewpoint was, it's all our perspective and acceptance of trauma. Our resistance for trauma create further issues. And if we accept trauma, and if we
Mm-hmm.
change our perspective towards trauma, we don't focus on healing, right?
It's right, but it's not that simple, because
Obviously.
our body is, as much as we think we've evolved, right? From the time
This
when
is
we
one of
were,
your great quality. You can see a issue from millions of perspectives. I
yeah,
was going to point it out.
but we came, and we descended from apes. We are animals. We're just human animals,
Yeah.
and we have this amazing thing that's always kept us safe. So back in the times of the dinosaur, when we didn't really quite even have language, our bodies have managed to keep us safe with the fight, flight, or freeze response, which is the stress response. So when we are suffering from some form of stress, our bodies will it's not a conscious choice. Our bodies go into the state where we either want to fight, we either want to run away from the situation, and if we can't fight the situation or run away from it, we freeze. And in this frozen state, our bodies start to, and chronic stress does that to us, and it's the same within trauma. So what's happening is, because the chronic stress response in our bodies, instead of us being able to tune into our prefrontal cortex, which is the logic and reasoning bit at the front, our bodies are stuck in our primal brain. Our amygdala is like the little C-shaped thing that's right at the back in our survival brain, the limbic brain, is firing off things, and we're producing a lot of cortisol and other stress hormones, because we're struggling with sorry, my thing went. I thought, oh no, the internet. So we struggle when our bodies are under the stress response, because our bodies, the greatest pharmacy that we have, right? And what it's doing is our brain sending signals to the rest of our body, telling the rest of our body to shut right down. It's telling our body that we can't do anything other than what we need to do to survive. which means
Right.
it can, sometimes we can, you know, be sick. Sometimes we can, you know, defecate. Sometimes we can't breathe and we have panic attacks and stuff. And all this is, it's called the polyvagal theory with Dr. Stephen Porges. And what it is, the science of this is our bodies, all our nervous systems responding and taking everything back down to the very, very basics just to keep ourselves alive in case the worst should happen. And then it will not reset itself until it thinks it's able to do so. Back, like with animals that you see in nature, you'll see them playing and hanging about, and then you'll see, so for instance, the cat and mouse. I know we have talked about that before, but you have the cat wanting to play with the mouse, and the mouse will pretend it's dead, so that the cat will leave it alone.
Yes.
Well, our bodies do exactly the same thing. They shut right down to the bare minimum, because, and you know, sometimes fainting through shock, and the whole shock, you know, the whole when we go into shock, the whole, what our body does is just another stage to that fight, flight, freeze system, you know. So what we need to do is, like the mouse, once the cat's gone, the mouse will get up, shake itself off and carry on. Yeah. And it'll just go about its day. It won't be going, I don't know about that mouse. You know, it won't be reliving the trauma in its head. Us humans have the human negativity bias. And because of that, when we have something bad happen to us, we then are living it at the time, and then we go to our neighbour or our friend or someone at work and we say, oh, you never guess what happened to me. Oh, this happened. And then you relive the trauma. But then someone else comes over and you tell them and you relive the trauma. And that's what can happen with modern day psychology, where you're going to see a counsellor or something and all you're doing is reliving the trauma, which isn't serving your highest good, you know. So it's finding a way around, like, to heal from the trauma without reliving what it was that you did at that time. And that's perfectly a perfectly viable way. You do not, it's something people think, oh, I have to relive that trauma to be able to heal. No, you don't worry. You really do not. It's perfectly okay. And it's a much healthier way of healing, to be able to go into how you're feeling in your body and explore things somatically, rather than to relive that trauma and put yourself through that. Breath work is an excellent way to get through trauma, as is other things like psychedelics. So it all depends on the types of trauma and what best suits you, you know. It's all, as we're all amazingly different and unique human beings, what we need to do is concentrate on what's right for us. So what's right for our friend who's had a completely different life to us, different life experiences, different beliefs, you know, different limiting beliefs and stuff. The thing with us is we're different too. So some of the stuff might work for us and some of the stuff might not. So it's all about finding what fits best. So like therapy is a bit like a shoe, you know, we'll find some that fits really well and is comfortable and is healthy for us. And we'll find some shoes that are just too tight and they're just not going to work.
Great analogy.
It'd be like me wearing high heels. It'd be like, whoa, I don't know about this then.
I think when it comes to trauma, we also discussed about the purpose of trauma, right? When we talk about trauma, we always talk in a negative sense. But if we see from a human being perspective, from a body perspective, our body and our mind is trying to protect us, right? We are constantly collecting data when we are out there in the world, and we are different from animals. They just function from instinct, right? but we are constantly modifying ourselves. So we have free space in the future, so we don't have to relive that experience, like the whole experience again. We just
Well,
collect the data and act from that data. So once we get some kind of trauma, so as you said, whenever we experience little bit similar situation, we just act from that pain, we just act from that traumatic wound which we have in our mind, right?
yeah, the other thing I want to point out there and make it, just simplify it a little bit, we have choice.
Yeah.
Animals don't really have choice. They just kind of, they're like amazingly being that they just be that, you know, the isness in a snake. You'll see a snake just sat there chilling, just being itself.
Yeah.
Animals are so good at just knowing that they're what they are and knowing that that's their place in the universe. To a bee is a bee. It goes about, it's a really industrious little creature. It pollinates flowers, it just enjoys its day, and it gets about and carries so much, like, see the weight on them legs, like all those little yellow pollen beads, like, that cling to them as they're going from flower to flower. Bees are cool. Humans, we have choice. So we don't need to be like little ants or little bees or anything like that. We need to be ourselves, and the only way we can be ourselves is through conscious choice. And that's the difference between us human animals and animals, because animals don't have that they don't have the ability to make a conscious choice like we do. But when God, take you back to the Garden of Eden, God gave man the choice, gave us free will. So we have the ability to make our choices, you know. I'm sure there's different stories from other cultures.
I'm the least aware person when it comes to all this. I have never read anything.
So when I think it's well known, you see, because people always seem to refer to the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, I've heard.
And it's, I think it's the most publicized story. And in the story, God gave conscious choice, and that is, or gave free will. And the truth of the matter is, it wasn't saying, well, you can choose what you must do, but you must honor your husband and you must be straight and you know, you have to do what the Bible says. He never said none of that, right? That's what ego has told people afterwards. But the truth of the matter is, God said, I give you free will. I give you the ability to make a choice. You have the ability to make conscious choice. And consciously create your own future. Right back there, and it's there in the Bible. Since then, people have used their conscious choice. The first thing was they had at the apple and left the garden, or had to leave the garden. You know, we can go into that another time. But from there, we've all made choices and we've all made mistakes. It's about learning to take responsibility for ourselves, not for other people, because when we take responsibility for other people, we end up screwing ourselves over. We're back to what I'd said at the start, where we're there living for everyone else instead of us. And other people are telling us things, and instead of thinking for ourselves, we're just doing what we think they want us to do, which is still our perception of what they think, because no one knows what's going on in another person's head.
That's what I meant when I said we have to go inwardly, because when you go inwardly first and you go deep enough and you ask enough whys, so you understand you don't know anything, right? And you go deep enough, so you understand. I'll not use the word understand. You realize this fundamental reality that whatever the fabric we all are made of, it's the same, right? we can call it God, we can call it consciousness. I choose to call it infinite intelligence, and everybody has their own name. But the truth of the matter is, and whoever is experienced it, they know that it cannot be explained in words, and there is a desire in us that when we encounter some profound thing and we see that like it's so simple, people are suffering unnecessary, so it's like it's a human kind of instinct, so we come back and we start telling people, oh, I found this solution, and you just have to switch a little bit and everything
that's
will be,
ego.
yeah. That's
ego, isn't
ego,
it? And judgment.
right?
That's our perception is they would be better people. I think that person's better if they do what I say, because it worked for me. And I think it's made me better. Well, do you know, sometimes we don't make us better, and sometimes we make mistakes, but telling other people what to do is so wrong, because, and I shouldn't really even tell people what not to do either, you know, because we all have free choice. And it takes you to karma. If I tell someone what to do and I fix it for them, so I tell them how to fix things, you know, I'm talking about not our children, that are little children, because they're what we guide, but say a child over the age of 10, they need to know they've got conscious choice. So what we do is we love them and guide them and not tell them what to do. When we start telling them what to do or fixing the problems, we stop them learning the lessons that help them evolve as human beings and move further forward. And what we do then is we take on their problems. We then have their karma. Yeah. So we don't just have our own karma, where we're you know, we're taking on other people's as well here. We're carrying the weight of the world because we think we're right, and that's not right at all. Yeah,
it reminds me of a saying like a monkey who wants to, like a monkey says to a fish, like, fish, you are drowning, come up, I'll take you on the tree. So it's not.
I love all the things in India, all the little sayings, they're so amazing.
It's like in India, it's so ingrained in the Indian culture. Like whenever you, like since childhood, I've heard these sayings like God is in everything and every particle, and like which quantum mechanics is now saying. I'm like listening.
It is,
I'm listening all this stuff from childhood. But the thing is, I've always revolt against all traditions and all religions. And the reason was, I think people get stuck onto words. Like even listening to this podcast, the best we can like give someone is we can give them questions, we can give them a little bit of inspiration on their journey, but you have to experience it yourself. You can't just like take our words and repeat those words to someone and say, oh, I'm very enlightened or something like that. And people do that all over the internet. I've seen people.
If people tell you they're enlightened, they're not likely to be enlightened.
That's the first sign, right?
Yeah. If someone says I'm an enlightened being, just nod, smile, and then
this is the reason I put these disclaimers again and again. Like, don't trust us. Go find yourself. We are just to give you some inspiration and something like that.
This is our truth. This is my truth. This is your truth. And you watching have your own truth. And your truth will be built upon your perception of the world and how you've experienced life and what you want to get. And you know, if Christ can be enlightened and Buddha can be enlightened, and then Muhammad could be enlightened. So you've got these three people from like Muslim and Buddhism and Christianity. So you got these three people who were enlightened beings. Yeah.
Yeah.
They all had their own different belief system. it took their own different life experiences. Like there's 3 people there with very different lives, different families, different cultures, who ended up with the same result, which was the enlightenment. So you don't have to tick all these certain boxes. There's no course. You can't go and do like a 7-week course on enlightenment and then get a certificate. And if you're working towards it, it's not going to come either. I think that enlightenment comes to people once they realize that the truth is in their higher selves, in their higher nature, when they fully connect to that higher nature. So like Jesus and Muhammad and Buddha, they finally got to sit with all their demons. They finally got to connect to their deepest, darkest selves, and they could be with people without judgments and just be pure love. Same with Ram Dass. It was about being pure love. And when we can get to that stage where we can be non-judgmental and just hold space and be present for people, that's when we're more heading in the right direction, I think,
Truly. And when it comes to enlightenment, I think people put this word on a pedestal, which in itself becomes a barrier.
Yeah.
Because all life in itself is, in its base, is enlightened, right? And it's nothing so profound like you have to put it on the pedestal, and you have to just, what I would say is, like I have this saying, like you reach to truth by negation, not by addition, right? And people start adding a lot of things, and that those addition of these words like enlightenment and nirvana and all this, these becomes a barrier, because you have put in someone on a pedestal. Like you must have heard the Buddha's story. Like Buddhists tell the story in that way. Like the Buddha, when he was born, he started walking, and he raised his finger, and he saw that I have come to remove all the suffering from humanity. And there are some Buddhist story who tell this story like that. So what they are doing is they are just putting Buddha on some kind of pedestal, like you can't be a Buddha. But there is like your story in itself, I think, is a proof like it's possible for everybody, and it's your fundamental nature. There's nothing so out of space about enlightenment, right?
In Christian, in the Bible, Jesus said you can, I'm trying to think of the actual words, but there's words that Jesus said in the Bible, like you can't get to the Father unless you go through him. But he didn't mean you have to follow him and do what he says and live as he meant, that you need to walk in right way. So you need to love and serve people to be able to get to God. You don't get to the kingdom of heaven through getting like 10 million stars throughout your lifetime and being a super good human being. You're in heaven. Life is heaven. This is heaven. It's just your perspective. We're living in heaven, but we could say we're living in hell, but it's our perspective. It's only our perspective that's telling us right now what we're living in is hell. It could be heaven, but we've not turned our minds to look at it that way, so it's all about seeing that the truth is within ourselves. And even though we're all unique human beings, our answer is as unique as we are. It's unique to each and every one of us. You haven't got to have a rich family or a poor family or whatever to reach enlightenment. You've just got to be. And that all that matters is that you learn about love for yourself, you know, but not in an egotistical way where you think you're better than everyone else.
Yes.
So it's love without attachments, which is unconditional love, which is what Maharaji said. You know,
Yes.
it's also what Jesus
there is
said.
only that love, right? There is only unconditional.
Yeah.
Like people say there is love and then there is unconditional love. Love must be unconditional, right?
Not really. There's,
Right.
I think, 7 different types of love, which I can't remember them all off the top of my head. But you have the love is, you can have like unconditional love, like a dog would have for its owner. You have parental love, so like a parent would have for a child. Yeah,
Okay.
and you have romantic love, like the love between 2 lovers, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's 3 or 4, but there's another few. There's 7 different types of love. So love, unconditional love's like the strongest, most amazing love that we can have for another soul. But all the other different loves that can come in, that have their, I guess, like you said in the beginning, the labels give them limitations.
Exactly. That's what I meant. Like, love must be unlimited.
Absolutely. I fully agree.
So, what are some of the books you have recommended to people a lot? Or maybe you have gifted to your loved ones?
Be Here Now, Ram Dass.
Yeah.
Being Ram Dass.
Okay.
How Can I Help You, Ram Dass. I know I sound like a big Ram Dass person, but I am.
I love
it. His way showed me that it's not in one religion. His way took me to see the world with new eyes. His way showed me that it was about loving kindness and loving awareness, and not just one thing. So what he did for me, and when after my stroke, and I wrote to Ram Dass and I'd said, and he supported me in setting up the Self-Help by the Spoonful website. He allowed me to share some of his writings and stuff, and I be forever grateful.
That's so fascinating.
So it's like he was there. He loved and supported everyone. Yeah.
He was a great man. He has a great, profound story as well.
These are tears of love. And it's okay to cry, people.
Absolutely.
So it's like you can love someone so much that it makes you cry. And that is a pure, clean, clear love that is unconditional, you know? And that's the love he shared with me. And it's the love he shared with many followers, which is why we follow him. You know, because he says, I'm not the answer's within you. So, and then he makes you look at yourself deeper than you've ever looked at yourself or loved yourself before. He sees you in all your, and this is unconditional love, like Maharaji when he met Ram Dass. You see someone in their pure form with all their imperfectly perfect flaws, and you love them anyway, regardless of their stereotypical image or whatever. It's not about anything other than love, you know. Exactly. It's loving someone and loving them without expectation, you know.
When you know yourself, you know everybody else, right?
Yeah. So people call Ram Dass a lighthouse because he's like a light in the dark, and you go to him and somehow you end up being lit up by his love and his acceptance of you. And it's so hard to learn to accept yourself. Trauma, back to trauma again. Trauma causes a disconnect in the body and mind. It stops us accepting ourselves as we are. We see ourselves as wrong, as vulnerable, as weak, as shameful, as like less than human. We see ourselves as such a negative force that we fail to do ourselves justice, and we forget our good points.
Yeah.
So it's about learning to love yourself, which is just like Reiki. So when someone else can love you, even though you've had whatever or done whatever, and you know, you realize you're not actually quite that bad.
Yeah. That's why it's so important to heal our trauma, because we are onto a journey together to create a flourishing world, right? And people think like trauma is something which happens to only few of us, but that's not true. We don't recognize it. Trauma happens to everybody actually, and you can just see that the proof of it is you can see the condition of the world. People around, there are people, like you said, hurt people. There are hurt people running around hurting other people, right? That's trauma. Right now, the situation is we are living in kind of a traumatic society. And it was, I'm not saying it has become like that now. As you pointed out, since evolution, it was like human life has always been kind of
been there. It's just, I think as we were back then, we were better at putting ourselves right after an incident. Whereas now we're constantly living in this state of trauma, and like with debts and things, COVID, like I don't like mentioning it, but it's there. It's one of the truths in the world that there's this thing that is a microbe, that it exists and it affects people, and it affects many people, even when they don't believe in it, because they can't get the food, or they can't access the health care, or they're not welcome at the friend's house, or someone won't talk to someone else because of a vaccine. You know, that in itself is a whole form of trauma. It's another form of disconnect, where we, instead of being able to be with one another and connect and support one another, unless we have the mindset which enables us to connect through different things online, we are disconnected from society, which it's made the suicides rise up. It's made people feel less than capable. It's caused all sorts of homelessness that was never there before, all sorts of unemployment. There's been losses on a wide scale. I know in India, I know one of my beautiful clients in India lost her husband a few months ago, and she's an amazing being, and she's got an 8-month-old baby, you know, and she's suffering from disconnect, because grief and the loss of something causes disconnect. So anyone who's ever grieved or is grieving is disconnected, is suffering from some form of trauma, you know. And anyone who's been in a fight, but, you know, in an abusive household, or an abusive family, or an abusive society, where they've been expected to be something that they're not, you know, maybe in a certain religious setting or a spiritual setting. It happens in all settings, people from all walks of life, all these things, they create a disconnect. And it's really sad that all these people are suffering from trauma. But now the wonderful thing is we're starting to recognize it. We're starting to say, these are the things you can look out for. You can look out for, have you got an immune system issue? How's your health and well-being right now? Have you got chronic depression? Have you suffering from insomnia? All these different things can be pointers that say you have been experiencing some form of trauma. Addictions Stop looking at people like that are homeless or addicted, or not that the two go together, but we need to stop at looking at people like that's all there is to them, because that's just putting a label on that person, like that is a label. And we're forgetting that person, like I've met people on the street that used to be millionaires that lost everything. It can happen to anyone. It's not just like, for me it was my health that put me homeless after my stroke, but all these people are suffering, and they're all suffering from that shame, that guilt, that feeling unworthy, unloved, and not enough. Sometimes you have one or two of the symptoms, sometimes you have them all, but it's all different forms of trauma, and it's global. There is nowhere that I know of that is not been touched by trauma. Even the indigenous people who live disconnected from other people in the world, in their own places, in the rainforests and stuff, are now suffering forms of trauma, all because of what's going on. And it's really sad. But the beautiful thing is we now know how to recognize it. And through bringing together a mixture, the Eastern medicine, Western medicine, the science and the spirituality. So East and West, bringing it together so there is no more separation, right? In our beliefs.
East and West are coming together, and we are living in this profound time where science and spirituality, although I don't like to use this word spirituality because it's kind of corrupted by overuse. So science and spirituality, it's like just like the word love, spirituality. People who don't understand it use it again and again, and it got corrupted.
Well, spirituality means to look for an answer of something that's bigger than yourself, right? So if we weren't to use I don't know another word but I suppose it's exploring our higher selves.
Exactly.
And that is spirituality. It's not about religion. All it is a person exploring their higher self. That is really what spirituality is. It's not about enlightenment. It's not about awakening. It's not about you must follow whatever. It's about exploring our higher selves. So the clue there is it's all about you. Whoever's watching, whoever's listening, it's not about anything else. It's about you. It's about your journey. It's about your perception of you, and taking it to every level that you can possibly think of, and asking all the questions in the world, and remembering there is no such thing as a silly question, because that's the stuff, the crap that they feed you in churches and stuff like that. I've had it. I ask questions. Oh no, it's just this, or you don't need to know that, or whatever. It's like, well, actually I do need to know that, and I did want to know that. And if churches and people like that are going to stop you asking questions, and find another one. You go to every person's science and religion and every kind of thing that you can think of, and you explore the world that appeals most to you, to its deepest level. So explore nature, explore the cosmos, the universe, explore being, because that is where you'll find your answer. You don't have to set off and go on a world tour to find an answer. You just need to explore what makes your heart sing.
Exactly. And there's a great, I would put another disclaimer. It's all about disclaimers today. You have to be, when you're on this.
We've not been too bad. We've not really mentioned many taboos. We're doing good.
You did, yeah. So far, so good. So when it comes to questioning everything, I've seen a lot of people become cynical, but skepticism without cynicism has like great value. But when you like mix it with cynicism, then it becomes worthless, right? So if someone is listening to us and he or she feels very, very detached and her life is a constant struggle, a constant battle with the world and with herself, what will you say to her?
Take a pause. The first thing for anyone that feels like anything and that like they just can't quite get it, but they're just not quite getting even where they're at right now.
Yeah.
Take a moment to pause, just breathe. And in that moment, as you catch your breath, maybe count to 10, it's good advice. And I heard it as a child, but it was out of context, I'll just hold my breath and count to 10 before I scream. That's my mum. And now I'm realizing that actually you hold your breath and you count to 10 and then you exhale and you'll feel like you've got a different perspective on whatever it is. And only after you've taken that breath, maybe then look at doing a brainstorm and putting down how you feel on a piece of paper or in your phone in your notes or something.
Yes.
And then you've got some form of direction. And then you can go and find someone to talk to if you've not got a friend or you feel like you haven't got someone that you can talk to that's not going to be judgmental, then you go away and you go and find someone who will hold space for you. That means sit with you without passing judgment, who will just listen to what you've got to say. Because do you know what? Sometimes when you just express what you need to say and someone listens, you didn't need an answer because you'll discover that you actually had the answer inside and you'll come to that conclusion yourself, So you can find a person like myself or another person who you feel will hold space for you. Somewhere where you feel safe enough to just allow yourself to be truthful, and speak your truth. And once you do that, you'll then know where to go next, because humans have a superpower and it's called intuition. Yeah. And we feel it. And when we're disconnected, we don't feel it as good. But with practice, we get there. And our superpower, our intuition, we feel it in our belly. So when something happens and we have a question, we can think about it and we sit with that question, just bring it up, take a pause, and then see where we're feeling that in our bodies, And we can then take that further. We can check out what that means. We can explore it somatically, which is through our bodies, through a body worker. Or we can do it through meditation or breath work. I do these things, but I'm not the only person in the world that does. And there are many people out there, Yeah. So go to somewhere where you feel comfortable, where you feel happy, and let someone else teach you how to read your own bodies, to how to connect back to that, like yoga brings you a proper yoga teacher who will teach you how to unite mind, body and spirit. They'll help you bring you back to yourself. A Sunday yoga a once a week yoga teacher will tell you how to bend yourself into a human pretzel. Different people. So you want a person that will help you tune into you in the way. You might find an awesome dance teacher. Yeah, you might be into dance, and that dance teacher will teach you how to express yourself and tune into what it is you're feeling through the art of dance. Other people through drawing and painting. There's as many different ways to discover ourselves as there are people walking the planet. We can put labels on things, but like shaman and priest and priestess and stuff like that. But for me, it's about finding somewhere where you feel safe, in a place without judgment, to explore your you in a way that suits you best, in a way that makes your heart sing, because it shouldn't be painful to explore yourself. That's psychology. That is why the amount of people, one of the high professions out there for people who commit suicide are psychologists.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah,
it was really surprising.
It's crazy, but yeah, it is true. It's scientifically it's true. So yeah, it's all about listening to what's right for you in your body, and exploring that in the best way you can possibly do. You know, that way you will find what's best for your highest good. You know, I could try and sell you all sorts, but it's pointless, because I might not be the right shoe for you. You know, I might not be the right fit. So I'm just explaining that through listening to yourself, and if you can't listen to your mind because it's going off on one, you know, that fantastic spiral that happens, listen to your belly, try brainstorming, maybe sing it out. I don't know, you know, but there's that many different ways of just practicing just something after taking a pause.
Yeah.
And then your body and mind will take you to where it needs to be next, because I believe that our bodies work in alignment with our higher self, whatever your higher self is, you know. And its aim is our higher self's aim is to take us to a higher level of consciousness, which is to be the person we were meant to be before we were born. And the only way we can do that is through listening to what our body's trying to tell us, because it speaks to us through our bodies, through our dreams, through our how we put ourselves out there in life, you know, maybe who we hang out with, maybe the music we listen to, maybe the hobbies that we have. There'll be bits in there, there's little clues in things, anything that makes your heart sing. Maybe you're a rock collector or something, then do you know what, you'll find your answer somewhere in rocks. And I know that sounds a bit random, but you know, the rock people will get to you. The spirits that are held inside the rocks, they will talk to you and help you work your way forward. The spirits in nature, the message from the stars or the animals. There's so many things that will help you explore you if you just listen and open yourself to that awareness of that there's something more in the world than you, you know, than you or you and your family or you and your current environment. There's so many cool things out there, and when you open yourself up to that other beingness, or the form of beingness or isness, you'll be amazed at what rocks up in your life, you know, totally amazed.
Totally agree. Body has its own intelligence, but we are nobody has taught us to how to read it, right? Everything about human being is like written onto ourselves, but we don't know how to read it. So that's the thing. So maybe you can yourself, or somebody can definitely teach you that skill, so you can be better in harmony with this body and with body, which you use the word Patrimama, right? With Mother
Pachamama,
Earth. Patrimama.
Yeah.
So it's all about harmony. So last question. What will be your message to the world?
There's never a last question. I'd like to, I mean, that could be the message to the world. There is never a last question, because
Absolutely.
it's
I have
a
to say, I have to
journey.
go with the format of the show, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's the there is never a like, it's all about the journey, not the destination, you know?
Absolutely.
So there's never going to be a last question, and you should never limit yourself to a last question. Yeah. And we are, for the sake of the format of the show. Yes. But I think that my message to everyone would be that you have got the power to consciously create your own future. You are an amazing, wonderful being that's created within all the powers of the universe. That is how you came to be. And that power that is within you, within your higher self, no matter how bad you're feeling right now, you know, that power can drive you forward to be the best person that you ever thought was never possible, wilder than your wildest dreams. And you have that power within you to consciously create that, because you have free will, you have choice, you have that conscious choice. So if you want to take yourself from wherever you are now in your life and take that baby step forward, then all you have to do is remind yourself, write it on the mirror in the bathroom, keep it as a note in your pocket or in your wallet or something, put it on your phone as a screensaver. I have a choice. And with that, anything is possible.
I think it's a nice spot to end this, and I think we have landed this plane pretty well. So if people want to connect with you, want to explore your work, where can we send them?
Well, me being not a very linear being and not liking to attach to certain roles, I have more than one website. Yeah. So to explore yourself and just to check in and get inspired, you go to selfhelpbythespoonful.co.uk. So that gives you ways to connect with many people all around the globe, and it gives you inspirational stories of how people have overcome things to consciously create their own future, and lots of little free ways to do things. So it's all free, it's out there, selfhelpbythespoonful.co.uk. If you want to explore your shamanic side or feel drawn to your shamanic side, consciously create change.co.uk. That is my shamanic site, and how I help people through things like soul retrievals and connecting to their true selves, and working within the energy field or the luminous energy field. My other websites are www.thepeaceofi.com. The Peace of I is all about bringing peace back to yourself. It's for ecotherapy, art therapy, talking therapies. That's my website for that. And then last but not least, if you're dancing with death right now, if you're experiencing suicidal thoughts or suicidal feelings, if you're suffering with serious illness or terminal illness, and you want to die consciously, you want to live and die consciously, drop me a message. You know, even like, don't worry if no one wants to listen to you. No worries, I want to listen to you. And that is at soul2soulsupport.com. So Soul to Soul Support is on Facebook as well. And what I do is I just drop me a message. I'm only a message away. It doesn't matter how bad you think that life is right now. It doesn't matter if you want to commit suicide, I'm not going to judge you for that. but I can hold space while you explore why you're feeling this way. You know, I won't judge you. I will listen to you, and we can just talk it through to whatever way, you know. And since 2014, and I've served many people suffering with so many traumatic things, and exploring suicide. I haven't lost one yet. So there's absolutely hope, and it's a message away.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And sorry about confusing everyone with all the websites. But not everyone wants to talk to a shaman. Yeah.
No, whoever will resonate with you will definitely connect to you. And thanks for giving me your time, the most precious asset a human being has. So thank you for that.
Having me. I enjoy spending time with you. It's awesome.
Same here. And next time maybe we'll talk about death, because here
brilliant.
Because here
it's guaranteed. It's guaranteed. We can't escape it.
There is no last question, right? There are more questions coming your way.
Well, you know where I am. I'm only a message away.